There's a new tier 100 magic armor set in town, and there seems to be a lot of misconceptions about it. I wanna find out what the magic armor set actually does, and how does it compare against Elite Tectonic. The Tumeken's armor set has 3 different buffs that vary in power. The 3-piece set changes the boost type of Sunshine, so that bleeds get affected by it. This means that one spec moves all the way to the top in priority, even in Sunshine rotations. And Combust could become a nice builder ability at the start of your Sun before your staff spec. However, this only applies to scenarios where you don't get a pre-crit buff and don't crit go after Sun. It makes Combust vault with all the buffs a decent ability, but it still doesn't outweigh the benefits of G-Kong, and it barely outdamages it. But if you're in a scenario where you can't use good abilities like Threshold's ultimate special attacks, then you might wanna use your time to Combust as a filler. There's also an idea to end your Sunshine rotation on a Rack and Ruin into a Combust, and then you will get like 30k out of it, which might be a nice little burst at the end of your Sun. But unfortunately, I don't really see this getting much use without the use of Raider Chain for more stacks. If you have a lot of extra targets and can burn your Blood Tide stacks, you can use Chain into Rack and Ruin, into Dragon Breath, into Combust during your 1 spec. And this should give you like 80k damage on the Combust. And this I could see being used in some bosses in actual gameplay. Oh, and you also have to walk under them on take. So this is a very specific scenario where this tech could be useful, but I can see it being used somewhere. The 4-piece set effect is the most interesting one to me. It completely changes how Asphyxiate works. Now Asphyxiate will be 1 tick longer and hit for every single tick. So it will do a total of 8 hits instead of 4. But each hit is nerfed by 25%, making an effective 50% damage increase without any extra buffs. But of course nothing could be that cut and dry in RuneScape. If you break it down to elements used outside of buffs, Tumeken's armor set Asphyxiate does 12.5% more damage per tick than the 3-tick Asphyxiate normally used with normal magic armor. And this goes up to 15% inside of Sunshine and FSOA spec. And if you have 1 piece of Tect, it might go slightly even above that. And it makes fully channeling Asphyxiate worth it. Especially when under crit buff, every crit gives you adrenaline, which makes this a very powerful ability in adrenaline generation as well. And if you were to cancel it early, you would have to do damage with some other ability using adrenaline, unless you're just spamming G-Kong, which is a great strategy, but obviously there's not enough basics to come up with the damage you're losing without doing this extra damage. I know all of this information has been confusing to the player base, but this 5-piece set is the worst of them with the misconceptions.
Overall, the 5th piece, like the 5th set effect that this armor set provides you, where it gives you a 50% damage boost, is kind of lackluster, and it is definitely needing some tweaking, some numbers adjustment. I honestly think that if you gave it a 100% damage boost and a guaranteed critical strike when you have it fully procced and ready.
5 pieces. When you now channel your Asphyxiate fully, you gain Embodiment of Light for 9 seconds. That is a buff to your next non-channeled magic ability that deals an additional 50% critical strike damage. When you first hear that, that might sound great. 50% damage. But it's 50% crit damage, and while that is great, your ability won't always crit.
But why is it so disappointing? 50% damage on your next crit sounds huge. So use Asphyxiate, use G-Kong, use Omnipower. And since you're like 50% chance to crit every hit of Omni, this should increase your Omnipower's power by a lot. But unfortunately that is not the case. Unfortunately this 50% statement is bait. This 50% gets applied on top of your existing 200% critical damage. And this makes this an effective 25% increase. And on top of this, you also have to crit the hit for the increase to do anything, which lowers the overall average damage even more. Just do yourself a favor and use Cinderbanes or a piece of Tect instead. Now that we understand what the armor does, we have an important question to ask. Is it better than Elite Tectonic? And to some of you this might sound like a stupid question, as this armor gives you a lot of different buffs. Of course it's gonna be better than Elite Tect, what does it do? This gives you a bit of crit, but due to how magic works with Fractured Staff of Armadyl, where critical hits are everything, and each critical hit will do a lot of bonus damage in your rotation, maximizing your critical strike chance is key to high DPS. And the 6% crit that the Elite Tectonic offers you is a lot of damage. Obviously testing something like this would take a huge amount of time, so I decided to consult math. I made a couple different rotations for both armor sets, both for Sun and Meta, and decided to compare them. Obviously in real PvM scenarios, there are a lot of moving factors from the boss fight and everything like that, that these are not the only thing that matters. But I think this gives you a good baseline of a full Sun rotation and a full Meta rotation to see different kinds of damage profiles that could be used inside an actual fight and how they compare against each other. And I made these rotations not expecting any resets, anything like that, and to be as applicable as possible to any scenario. So no weird tricks, no chains, no resets, nothing like that. The first rotation I want to look at is a pretty normal Sun rotation with a stall crit buff before it. So what you would do is stall Incendiary Shot and then release it with Sun and do this rotation. And in this scenario, Elite Tectonic slightly outperformed the new Masked Armor, but it's not by a lot. And I forgot to take into account that now one spec gets buffed by Sun. So the next one we're looking at is the same thing, but an added one spec. And in this scenario, the new armor set wins by 12k damage and 1 tick. So it's not a huge margin of victory here. And finally, I wanted to look at some meta rotations. And these would mostly be used when hybriding. But unfortunately, the Unmasked Armor has a huge disadvantage here, where the most powerful buff, being the Asphyxiate, takes a lot of time to activate, 9 seconds. So when you're starting out the hybriding part, you might need to do some weird trickery or waiting to get the Asphyxiate up, and this rotation should reflect that. And in the meta rotation, they are basically dead even. But if you have a Tech Helm with the Masked Armor, then the Masked Armor is slightly better with a 2% crit buff. So it is a really close call between all these damage rotations. And honestly, it might come down to what boss you're doing to which armor set is preferred. But I would say the Masked Armor is great for newer players because it gives clear points of power to use. Like the Asphyxiate is a huge ability you can use often. And Bleach being good in Sun gives you a lot more wiggle room to have decent basic stacks in your Sunshine rotation if you mess up and don't get enough adrenaline. So use what looks more fun to you. I'm sure both armor sets will have great rotations written for them, and you can improvise with both of them. If you like this video, like, subscribe, all that shit. See ya.